Hello listeners and welcome to episode 93 of Sitcom Showdown. I'm Steve.
Oh, hello, I'm Jeff.
Yeah,
Hi, Steve.
we're back and it's my turn to nominate something this time. And this time I've picked an episode of Taxi, and this episode's called Reverend Jim, A Space Odyssey.
Before we get into Taxi and Reverend Jim and the brilliant cast of that particular show, wasn't there a tale of woe behind this choice, Steve, that necessitated a last minute?
Well, my first choice, I mean, I had always intended to get to this one sooner rather than later, but I'd picked an episode of Parks and Recreation, and I went to get prepared for this episode, and they'd ripped it off Netflix.
Boo!
So, I don't know. I'm going to have to look for it in the DVD bin or something now.
So to this day, I've still never watched an episode of Parks and Rec.
You haven't watched a single episode?
I haven't watched a single episode of Parks and Rec.
Anyway, so I was going to say that this title is a bit of a nod to Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. Or did I already say that before? No. Okay, so it does tell us a bit about Reverend Jim, because he's spaced out, man.
He is spaced out.
He's pretty spaced out.
Tony Danza says that later on in the episode.
Yeah. So this is season 2 and episode 3 of Taxi, and it ran for a total of 5 seasons, which was probably a long run back in those days. It aired on ABC from September the 12th, 1978 to May the 6th, 1982, and then it switched to NBC from September the 30th, 1982 to June 15, 1983. So I'm not quite sure the story behind the switcheroo there. But it's good that it continued on somewhere else.
Yeah.
It was a critical and commercial success, this sitcom. It was nominated for 31 Emmy Awards, and it won 13.
Holy moly.
That's one for the numbers, people. It was nominated for 31, and then it was flipped to win 13. I don't know.
Did you compare this to any other shows, just to give us some context? Because that
13 does sound like a big total to me.
It does. And then I'm wondering about something that was around the same time, like MASH. MASH might have won tons of, Emmys or nominated, and did it beat Taxi every year? Or who knows? I mean, I'm just curious about this sort of stuff.
I prefer not to put it into any context that might diminish the...
Oh, yeah, no, yeah. That's
the appearance that it's a really good total.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
And it did win 3 straight years for Outstanding Comedy. Ooh. So they were on a hot streak for a while. Now, this is set in the Sunshine Cab Company's garage in Manhattan.
Is that... They're taking the mickey, aren't they?
Why?
Because in Louis' domain, nothing's very sunshiny. And on that set, it's grimy and dark and horrible.
It certainly is. They do a great job of making it look grimy. Yes, so the show covers many serious issues such as drug addiction, single parenthood, blindness, obesity, dissociative identity disorder, animal abuse, homosexuality, racism, teenage runaways, divorce, and the list goes on, Jeff.
Oh.
So lots of serious stuff in there, and we do see a bit of it come through in this episode as well, as our characters care for Reverend Jim in his predicament. But we'll get on to that later. Like you've already said, this show does feature many great actors, and we talked at length about Judd Hirsch in Sitcom Showdown episode 56. So we're not going to do that again here, because we've got so many other people to talk about.
Oh, man. But I'll tell you, just before we move on from Judd, I'm so glad that we had done that previously, because it gave me... I had my eye on him in this. It gave me a whole appreciation for what he does. And he's unbelievably good. But
Yep, and he plays a great character called Alex Reiger, and he is the compassionate, level-headed core of the show, the one everyone turns to for advice. Do you see that a bit in this one as well? Jeff Conaway plays Bobby Wheeler, and Bobby is a optimistically naive, struggling actor, and Jeff, who played him, passed away in 2011.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think he's maybe one of the only cast members that's passed away so far. Danny DeVito, very well-known actor, is Louis De Palma, who is the main antagonist of the sitcom, and he's the grumpy head dispatcher of the cab company, as you've already said. He's not a ray of sunshine.
No, he'd dispatch a few heads.
Yeah, if you could reach them.
Yeah.
He is, of course, a diminutive fellow.
Mm-hmm.
And Danny is well known for his movie roles, including One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Romancing the Stone, Throw Mama from the Train, Twins, Batman Returns. He was the Penguin in that one, wasn't he? Yeah, nice. Get Shorty, LA Confidential, and I threw in Heist as well because I like that one quite a bit.
Are you an Always Sunny in Philadelphia sort of chappie?
Jeff, you're taking the words right out of my mouth. No, go for it.
He was associated with that.
Well, that one looks like it will run to at least 18 seasons, which is just, because they're contracted for another couple of years yet. So
that's got that dude I slagged off in that show, The Teacher.
That's right.
That's that guy.
That's where he comes from.
Who I don't like. Yeah, that's him.
I just can't imagine trying to tackle a show that's got 18, well, obviously it's 16 seasons
in
now or something.
But day and age, it's unbelievable, isn't it? It mustn't show how good that program is, really.
Well, you'd think so. Who else have we got? We've got Marilu Henner, plays Elaine O'Connor, who is a divorced mother of 2, and she's struggling to cope while trying to realise her ambitions in the field of fine art. One of her other credits is a show called Evening Shade, which was a sitcom that aired on CBS from 1990 to 1994. I'm looking to see if you've ever heard of this.
Did that have Mr. Burt in it or someone else?
Yeah, it starred Burt Reynolds as Wood Newton, an ex-professional football player for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who returns to rural Evening Shade, Arkansas, to coach a high school football team with a long losing streak.
Right.
Oh, that sounds like it could be pretty cool. But Marilu played Wood's wife, so that was Burt Reynolds' character's wife in that show. So, yeah, it sounded kind of interesting. Let's keep moving. We've got Tony Danza playing Tony Banter.
Is he always called Tony in every sitcom?
He is, Jeff.
Oh, my goodness.
That must have been his condition of signing on the contract or something. So this Tony Banter, is a kind-hearted, slow-witted Vietnam veteran and a boxer who has little success in the sport, though. Tony Banter, I wonder if he was a bantamweight.
Bantamweight? Oh, well done.
Of course, Tony Danza went on to be in Who's the Boss? And that was a huge sitcom that ran for 8 seasons. Would it be too much to say that he was a superstar of the late 80s?
Oh,
Tony
yeah,
Danza?
absolutely.
He was huge.
Totally. I'd push that boat out. I'd draw that long bow. It's a short bow to draw to say Tony Danza was a superstar.
Oh, good. Now, there's 2 more cast members that I want to talk about, and they're huge too. We've got Christopher Lloyd, who's playing the titular Reverend Jim Ignatowski. And Christopher won 2 Primetime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series for this character.
Well, he must have been good.
Yeah, well, you know what? And of course, he's best known for playing the eccentric inventor Emmett Doc Brown in the Back to the Future trilogy.
Yeah. Geez, they must have aged him up for that, Clive Dunn style. Because, you see him here only, 4 years earlier? 6 years earlier.
Yep.
And he hasn't got a touch of grey. And
he looks to be in his 30s or something here.
Well, I'll tell you all about that later on, Steve.
Okay, I look forward to that.
Hey.
So Christopher's got a massively long list of credits, and he seems to have kept working pretty much up to the present day on bits and pieces. So that's good. And lastly, we've got Andy Kaufman, who plays Latka Gravas, who is the garage's mechanic and is an immigrant from a strange foreign land who often speaks in his own tongue, which includes like a gibberish and invented phrases, kind of a deal.
Yeah, he was the Borat of his day.
Yeah, that's right. Latka was actually based on a character that Andy had created known as Foreign Man. And I don't know if you know this, Jeff, but later in the show's run, Andy became a bit bored of playing Latka, so the writers gave Latka dissociative identity disorder so he could play other characters.
Oh, okay.
And I've got a quote here from Wikipedia. This allowed him to broaden his comedic abilities with alternate personas such as the womanizing American Vic Ferrari, the cowboy Harlow, the elegant Englishman Sir Geoffrey, and even Alex Riger himself, which is Judd's character. So...
Well, that's very accommodating of them.
It is very accommodating, but obviously he was a pretty special...
dude.
Special kind of a person.
Absolutely. He had a hint of the Peter Sellers about him.
Yep, that's right. He pushed the boundaries in his humour. And of course, there's a famous story about one of Andy's other characters, Tony Clifton, who was hired for a guest role on Taxi as if he was a real person, not a character. Yeah, so look that one up on YouTube if you want to know more about that. And so Andy was nominated for 2 Golden Globe Awards for his portrayal of Lutka.
Oh.
And he died of lung cancer in 1984 at the age of 35.
Oh, that is rough.
Mm.
Mm.
Have you ever watched Man in the Moon?
Yep.
Yep. So
Can't remember much about it.
That's the biopic starring Jim Carrey.
Mm.
You know, they actually recreated some scenes from Taxi in the movie.
Oh.
And when they recreated the scenes, the Marilu and Judd and Christopher and Jeff they went along to the movie set to do that with
No way.
with Jim Carrey, yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Oh,
Pretty cool, hey?
it is pretty cool. And if they'd done that recently, they would have used some brilliant de-aging technology and all that. But I mean, I think we can set that aside when you're watching the movie.
But I think they did
wow.
it. I don't exactly remember how old Man in the Moon is, but
Yeah, let's say 20 years.
it's far enough back that they hadn't aged
Mm.
ridiculously. There you go. All right, so I've come to the end of my notes. Is there anything you want to add or
Well,
anything before we move on?
because I don't think I'll get a chance to crowbar this in later on.
Okay.
I had a look at various people in the cast, and Marilu Henner interested me because she's one of only 61 people ever to be diagnosed with something called HSAM.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Is this something where you never forget something?
Yeah, pretty much. So highly superior autobiographical memory. So it's not like you're a memory genius or anything, but you remember in painful detail all these events from your life.
Mm.
And you can recall them in incredible clarity. And I just thought that's tremendously interesting. But I mean, for other people, it's crippling because if you see a date, and obviously this would happen every year,
Yep.
then it'll bring back all these things and you can't get on with your day. And it's actually a pretty bad condition. But yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Mm. And then things like, you know, when I was reading about Bobby, who is Jeff. So he left the series halfway through. And it's interesting that we're going to be watching Reverend Jim, who's a bit of a drug casualty, and Bobby's befriending him and trying to help him. But meanwhile, you know, in real life, he was having drug issues that then forced him to created problems down the line that he left the show the following season.
To deal with that, okay.
Rah, rah, rah. And he was in Greece, and then various other people were in Greece and all this sort of stuff. So it's all very interesting. And so I wanted to know more about these actors that I didn't know anything about.
I think Marilu, maybe, and definitely the producer of Taxi were both interviewed on Gilbert Gottfriedson before his podcast before he passed away. Yeah.
It's a good recommendation there.
Yeah, just prepare yourself for some
swear words.
Yeah, he's a bit of a swear bear. Well, he was a bit of a swear bear, Gilbert. So
good.
Yes. All right. So we'll go away and come back with a synopsis and a chat.
Cool.
Jim.
No!
Listen, my friends and I, we were wondering if you'd like to come over and join us.
Well, what did you decide?
We thought that you might like to.
Okie doke. Of course, I can only stay for 5 or 6.
So how you doing, Jim?
Fine, fine. Who are you folks again?
You marry me.
In the garage. Oh, yeah. Ibby-dibby-doo.
Jim, would you mind if I asked you a personal question?
Oh, I can take it if you can.
No, not that personal. Did you ever think about doing something with your life? You know, like getting a job?
As a matter of fact, I have. I've often thought I'd make a good pharmacist.
And we're back. Now, this episode starts in Mario's, which is a restaurant where the gang often hangs out. I thought this one had a nice, very nice setup, this set.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bit of levels to it. You've got step down at the entry as you're coming in the door. And there's loads of extras in this set as well, which is really nice. It's quite spacious compared to something like Queenie's throne room in Blackadder 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not quite Cheers level, but...
No, it's got a hint of How I Met Your Mother, where they all sit in that same booth with the bar on the right-hand side and blah, blah, blah.
So their seating is kind of in our foreground and all the extras are just doing their bit behind them.
Yeah, it's spacious.
Yes, very nice. So on this occasion, Alex, Elaine, Tony and Bobby, they're at Mario's to celebrate Tony's boxing victory. Now, as he comes in the door, Alex is so excited that he almost buys the whole bar a round of drinks before he remembers that he's a humble cab driver.
Yeah.
And so he downscales his round to just the people on his table. Now,
drinks for everybody.
Yeah.
In our small group.
Everybody on our table. So Tom, who is the bartender, he's also excited by the news of Tony's victory. And he says that the first jug of beer is going to be on the house. But then later on in the scene, we discover that Tony won by default because his opponent had tripped on the way into the ring and knocked himself out. And Tom's not too impressed by this, so he withdraws his offer for the free jug of beer.
Yes, wow, the pitcher of beer. And he
Pitcher
goes,
of beer.
that'll be $3.
Pitcher of beer.
Yeah, it's a pitcher of beer.
Now, I have left a spot here, Jeff, for you to go into your standard
Steve,
talk
you're a
about
genius.
The inflation of alcohol.
How did you know? Oh, man, this is where we get to play yet another round of how much would it be worth now?
Yeah.
And I did some quick calcs, and I call bullcrap on this. So inflation calculator US or whatever. So this pitcher of beer, which I've calculated to be maybe 4 pints, because they've got what look like pint glasses, but they probably not. And he's managing to fill those up. Anyway, $3 back in the day apparently is $12.24 US now, which would be under $20 in Australian dollary dues. And there's no way you're getting... 4 pints for under. Yeah. And I know beer is a lot cheaper in America, so maybe it's not too much bullcrap, but at the same time, I reckon they've underinflated that price, especially right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't forget, they didn't make it now, they made it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly...
No,
I'm not saying shenanigans on Taxi, I'm calling shenanigans on inflation calculator.
Oh, the inflation's wrong. Yeah.
No, exactly right. Because and listeners who are very dedicated will remember that around the very same time, we're talking 1979, 1980-ish, is when Arthur Dent and Ford Prefect bought a squillion pints of beer, and the landlord said, "What, a $5, sir?" As though he just handed him $2,000.
Yep.
And Arthur says, Ford says, "Keep the change."
Yeah, don't worry, it's
and
the end of the world
like,
anyway.
Wow. Thank you, Steve, for letting me ramble on.
It's all right. Strange things are happening with inflation in the US anyway, because they went from 8.5% inflation 1 month to 0%.
Oh, really? That's remarkable.
So it wasn't really 0%. It had just stayed at 8.5%, and they said, well, it hadn't increased, so we're just calling it 0%.
Oh, they've changed the way they calculate inflation several times.
Yeah,
all of them, which happen to be extremely complementary to whichever government decides to calculate inflation in a different way.
Yeah, and now a recession is something different as well. That's been redefined.
Oh, my goodness.
Anyway.
Go to John
we've gone quite
Williams'
off
Shadow Stats. Yeah.
So just then, the table notices Reverend Jim entering the bar. Now, Reverend Jim had performed Latka's marriage ceremony in a season 1 episode, so the previous season, and that was an episode called Paper Bride. And I thought, because I went back and looked at that one again, and I thought Reverend Jim did a pretty good job, actually. Anyway, Bobby catches his attention, but Jim doesn't recognise any of them at the table, and he makes to walk off.
Not with any purpose, I should point out. I think he's just randomly walking through because of where we find out he ends up. But yes, sorry.
Yeah, well, I think he's looking for the bathroom.
Yeah.
That's the intention.
I reckon you're right.
Latka then arrives, and he seems to have just knocked off because he's got his overalls on underneath, and he's a bit greasy. But in fact, he did intend to join the guys at Tony's fight, but he got lost on the subway and ended up in Harlem, where he went into a bar and told the guys in the bar that he was looking for a fight.
That is a brilliant line and a brilliant
love it.
situation.
Yeah.
The picture it creates in one's mind. Oh, it was nice.
Yep. And then he goes on to explain how they taught him some new words, some new English words.
Sang some groovy new songs with him.
Yep. And later on he sings Sex Machine as he's walking out of the bar. Yeah, it was pretty good. And at various points in the episode from now on, we hear him trying out some of these new phrases that he learned.
Yeah.
So
having said that, he's not in the episode very much.
No.
Latka.
He pops in and out a bit. So when Latka finds out about Tony's fight and how he won, he says in broken English, "Tony is a bad dude."
Yeah, he's a bad dude.
Yeah.
In the Michael Jackson sort of definition of bad, i.e. good.
Yeah, that's it.
Just clearing that one up for the kiddies.
Reverend Jim comes back past the table on his way back from the bathroom, which turns out to have been the kitchen.
That's in my top gags.
Yeah. Oh, go on then. Do you want to?
No. It's just I'll repeat that annoyingly at the end of the podcast when we list great gags.
But I'm not going back through the gag. So if it's a brilliant gag, point it out now, Jeff.
That was a brilliant gag. No,
like
okay. So what I've done is
are they suggesting that he had a wee in the kitchen? Is that what?
Well, I'd like to think so. That would be brilliant.
He saw a sink and he thought that'll do.
Pretty much. It's better than being out in the woods like he usually is, or something.
It's more than they had at Woodstock.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Oh, man. Anyway, yes, so under top gags, I've got, Reverend Jim comes out, obviously, as you just mentioned, and he looks completely shocked, as if he's just seen some sort of horror, and says, "Man, when are they going to clean those bathrooms?" And it was Alex said, "Those are the kitchens." And he goes, "Oh, well, thank goodness for that," as if a filthy kitchen is completely acceptable.
I was going to say.
And it's so horrific as a bathroom.
Doesn't say much about Mario's cleanliness of his kitchen, does it?
And while we're talking about Mario, this is, and in a sitcom you don't want to wait for things, right? But it is astonishing to me how they can just call out from across the room, "Dude, another round of beers, please," and within 30 seconds they've got a complete round of beers, as if there are no other customers in there.
Yep.
And the one guy behind the bar hasn't got a million other things to do. But that's
taxi drivers always get the best service.
Yeah. Oh.
Latka spots Reverend Jim coming back past, and he says, "You marry me?" You marry me. Jim doesn't think it would work out, though, so he declines. Not realising what Latka's what he's getting at here.
Even though they only explained it to him
3 or 4 times.
Yeah, that's right. But beautiful language play here.
So it's not until he hears Latka speaking his gibberish that he remembers the wedding ceremony, which again is a pretty funny detail. So let's just pause to relish the matchup here of Christopher Lloyd and Andy Kaufman. So that's pretty classic. And after a bit, Reverend Jim joins the crew at their table for a beer. And when he does, he's already forgotten again
who they are. Yeah, all he's done is he's gone for a wee in the kitchen, come back, doesn't know who they are.
Yeah, exactly. And they get to talking, and he tells them about Woodstock, etc., and essentially, he's saying how the 60s lifestyle took a real toll on his mental health. He's got recurring flashbacks of the original Mouseketeers hatching out of seed pods. Sounds a bit scary, doesn't it?
Okay.
And now he's broke. He would like to buy them a beer, but he can't. He says, "I'll buy you a jug, buy you a jug of beer." Then he goes to get money out of his pockets, and all he's got is string or something like that.
String and old wrappers, probably gum wrappers or whatever. He says, "Is any of this currency?" Nope.
Yep. So he's just kind of bumbling through life. Obviously, the church he was probably the only member of, the hippie church.
Well, did you pick up
down
the context? It flew by really quickly because I was wondering about his church. And he said, "Since the draft stopped, I lost my flock." So obviously it's, a church of you can object to being drafted under on religious grounds.
I haven't got it in my notes, but, we were talking earlier about how Taxi veers into serious subjects every now and then. There's a short part of that scene where you think that Jim and Tony are going to get into it because Tony went to Vietnam. And he's obviously...
Yeah, upset that someone's saying
some people were
protesting the war and being nasty to the... Yep.
But Jim really de-escalates the situation with his...
saying thank you.
Yeah, he's quite thankful of Tony's service, so that's all good.
Now, I don't want to cut you off here, but I will. again, I'm obsessed with age of actors and various things as well.
Yep.
So when he brought up the deals at Woodstock, and bear in mind this is 10 years after, I couldn't figure out, what sort of age I was wondering was Christopher Lloyd at the time. And when was Woodstock and when would this have occurred in his life? So if we have him as the same age as Jim,
Yep.
why not? Then it's pretty much, it worked out perfectly because he was 40 when this went out, about to turn 41.
Yep.
And so 10 years before, he would have been, 30 at Woodstock, which was at, 1969, the end of the 60s. So what Christopher Lloyd or Reverend Jim is saying that he is an analogue for the 60s. He went along with the whole trip and did everything that came in front of him and took every opportunity. And so he would have been like literally between the ages of 20 and 30, or 22 and 31 or whatever for the whole of the 60s. And so those were his formative young adult sort of years. And so I thought, oh yeah, well, you're absolutely right.
Yep.
Yeah.
But he's having a tough time of it now.
He absolutely is. At the age of 40, he needs direction, they all decide. But I'm jumping ahead here.
Yeah. Well, I think it's worth pointing out that it's made clear that he's still taking drugs, although he's getting prescribed these drugs by his doctor, and there's a gag where he says, it took me a long time to find a doctor who would prescribe these drugs to me. And yeah, go on.
No, there's a brilliant goodies gag that I might put in here if I can find it.
Look at this! 9 out of 10 doctors agree that people who don't eat sunbeams, sliced bread, will get squashed by elephants.
That's right. Mind you, it did take us a long time to find the right 9 doctors. And the elephants.
And he also says that he spent a year making a macrame couch.
Yeah.
Did you catch that?
I did catch that, yeah. Macrame is the thing with strings and wooden beads, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Right.
I was talking to someone the other day about hanging baskets, and
Oh, yeah.
of course a macrame hanging basket was all the rage back in the day. Wow, we're really showing how old we are now. Anyway, Jim's circumstances make the gang feel a bit sad, and they decide that they're going to try and help him get a job so he can maybe turn things around a bit. And there's a nice gag here where they try to think of a job he could get with no skills, etc., etc., which goes on for a little while.
Yeah.
Then they realise, hey, he could drive a cab too, just like us.
I was half expecting them to say
Shoe salesman.
lady shoe salesman, like Al. Because
Yeah.
I think, maybe Al Bundy's, Married with Children took a leaf out of some of these books. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think we said earlier, but obviously most of the main cast or their characters regard the cab driving as a means to an end while they're pursuing other careers and things like that, like Elaine's art and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And Bobby's acting.
And
just
the
to take
boxing,
a-
I'm not sure if that's
No.
going to work out for Tony
Well,
or
what
not.
about Alex? What journey is he on?
No, so he's just,
Accepted
He's
life
accepted
as a
for the time being,
Okay.
that's where he's at.
before he joins the divorced parents group in Dear John.
Yeah,
Yeah, cool.
that's right. Nice one, Jeff.
Hey.
Yes, so this is the end of the scene now, and it was a pretty long one. It was, and don't
Don't say you were.
don't say where, 9 minutes and 50 seconds.
Blimey.
Yeah, so quite a long scene, and I thought it had a very nice flow with one thing just leading on to the next thing, with characters coming in and going.
I'd agree with that.
Yes, and they use that to good effect with Jim just wandering off in the middle of a conversation with people, and even when he comes back to the table, he's not really understanding that they're trying to invite him over to have a chat to them.
Yeah.
I don't know if he even really knew anyone or was there to meet anyone in the bar. He might have just been there to
Use the bathroom.
go to the toilet.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I reckon so. Before we move on from that one, I have a top gag, seeing as
Yep.
we're not doing gags at the end.
Cram it in now.
So Bobby says to the crew, look, Jim's over there at the bar, and I don't know why, but I really like this guy, and I want to bring him back over let's have another shot at this.
Yep.
And he goes over and he says to Jim, look, Jim, we were wondering if you'd like to come over and join us. And Jim sort of just, looks blankly at him and says, well, what did you decide? He says, well,
Yep.
we thought maybe you would.
He's a bit socially
Okay.
awkward.
He's so passive. He just lets things happen to him, Jim does, and so Bobby drags him back over.
He's not one to seize an opportunity.
No, he's not one to spot an opportunity.
Or spot an opportunity.
Yeah. But what I also liked was that, obviously this is a big deal for Elaine and she's trying to help this guy and wanting to give him a job. And what I liked was that Alex was saying, well, whoa, he hasn't asked for any help. He's not, it's a bit patronising to say you're a bum, clean up your act and bloody come and get a job.
Clean up your room.
So this is the Alex role, I assume. Yeah, that's right. Clean out your slop bucket. Yeah, is that very Alexy from the rest of Taxi? Is that he's a very considerate dude? And
yeah, I think so. Yeah, he's the one who thinks it through. So should we move on to scene 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one is the next day, and Jim arrives at the garage with Elaine and Bobby. It seems like they did the responsible thing and took him out for a drive themselves to see if he was safe or not before moving on to the next.
See if he's a total lost cause.
Yeah, before moving on to the next steps. But everything was good, so what's going to happen is he will have to take a test, though. But before he takes his driving test, he has to meet Louis, because Louis is the one who hires and fires people around here.
So no point in going through all the rigmarole if Louis ain't going to hire him anyway. Okay.
Essentially.
I get you.
Yep. Of course, Louis is being his usual charming self, shouting at drivers and Lutka over the PA. I think it's obviously the start of a shift, so.
And what I love
is
he's
handing out the keys and all this sort of stuff.
A few minutes later, he just addresses the whole mob. He goes, "Listen, losers," tearing strips off them. It's classic stuff.
It is. Anyway, Elaine brings Jim over to Louis and asks Louis if he remembers Jim, because the wedding ceremony was held in the garage. As any good wedding is. But Louis immediately knows what is up. And he says, "Jim's a flake. Get him out of here."
Good call.
Now, flake in Australia is a delicious chocolate bar.
Oh, yes.
But it actually means a crazy or eccentric person, which I'm sure you knew, Jeff, but I just thought I'd put it out there in case other people hadn't heard that one before. So while the gang are trying to figure out a workaround where they can twist Louis' arm or something like that, they notice that Jim has kind of wandered over to Louis' booth. I'm calling it a booth. I don't know what the...
Oh, yeah, let's call it a booth.
Yeah, it's kind of an elevated thing with a
It
hole
reminds
in it that
me
you
of,
can push things through and...
The Real Deal with Bill McNeil. His announcing booth was also elevated and to the right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's his Real Deal with Bill McNeil.
Louis' booth has got some kind of grill.
And he's got a microphone and makes announcements.
Oh, yeah.
Dude!
Oh. Yeah, so Jim's kind of ambled over in front of the booth, and they kind of see him slip something into Louis' coffee. And when they ask him what it was, because they're a bit concerned, he says, "Well, it was either a tranquilizer or a chiclet."
Yeah.
You know what a chiclet is?
I don't know what a chiclet is.
Well, I've done all the research.
Oh, Steve.
It's a candy-coated chewing gum.
Oh, man, that's better than what I thought it was.
Kind of a square-shaped thing.
Right. I thought it was going to be some sort of vegetable-based thing like a chickpea. And I thought, I ain't having no chiclet, but I'm reconsidering now.
It could have been a chicken nugget, or I don't know.
This reminds me of when Bosch was the chef and he had to sort out his parole officer for House of Fools.
Right.
And he offers her a chicken nugget, which he pulls out of his jeans pocket.
Please, sit yourself down there, my sweet, sweet darling. Now, can I get you a lager, a cigarette, or perhaps a chicken nugget?
Thank you, I'm fine.
No, I'm drawing a blank on that one.
Yes, okay. Yeah.
Where do we get to? Oh, so he's it's either a tranquilizer or a chiclet. But before long, the tranquilizer starts to have an effect, and now we get some brilliant acting against type. Yes,
this is my favourite bit of the whole episode.
Oh, is it? Because you love acting against type. Oh. So acting against type is basically where a character which is strongly one way, for some bizarre reason, flips completely and starts acting the opposite of their normal way they act. So I tried looking for examples, and the first examples that came to mind were something like Dwayne Dibley versus the Cat.
Good call.
In Red Dwarf.
Nice one. Yeah.
Ace Rimmer's it's not Rimmer, so it's not.
Yes.
It's a completely separate character, so.
Well,
one doesn't really fly, but what have you...
My mind leaps straight to that one episode of Married with Children where Al starts taking showers and dressing in suits and is instantly desirable to all the neighbourhood ladies and starts raking in money at the shoe store with tips and becomes very successful. and being nice, and he's super nice to Peg and the kids.
Yep.
And, anyway. That,
perfect example, and they're always hilarious when you see them.
Yeah.
So, this tranquilizer's starting to have an effect, and Louis is getting totally chilled. And Jeff, I thought we might insert a clip here.
Hey, come on, guys! Let's get cracking here! Let's get the show on the road! Come on, boys and girls, let's roll them out! We were sailing away on moonlight day. We could hear the voices sing. They seem to say, everybody sing.
You have stolen my...
Now don't go. As we sang was those sweet song on Moonlight Bay, on Moonlight Bay.
So he sings this old romantic song, which is called On Moonlight Bay, and he ends in a harmony duet with Jim with their arms around each other.
It's a beautiful thing.
So all's forgotten.
Yeah.
Everything's good. And as he's getting ready to go to sleep on the top of a cab, the cab that Latka's repairing.
It's like there's so much subtlety and brilliance to this whole scene that you and I aren't going to bother getting into. But, he says, I think I'm going to go to sleep now, Ma. And obviously, as a kid, he'd climb the stairs like the kids do and then tuck himself in. And he's climbing up onto the hood of this taxi.
Instead of going up the stairs, because there is a set of stairs there, he climbs up onto the taxi.
There's an upturned bucket in front of the hood of this taxi, and he puts his first foot on the upturned bucket and then onto the hood of the taxi, and he goes no-nos, and it's
Yeah. And while he's doing this, the gang is singing On Moonlight Bay as a lullaby to him. And Bobby kind of comes over and he gets the okay from Louis for Jim to come work at the Sunshine Cab Company. It's very nice. And very funny.
I've got comments on that, actually.
Have you? Go ahead.
Some brilliant acting from Jeff, what's his name, as Bobby, because he goes over very softly to Louis, speaks very, very softly, and he goes,
like Ma.
Is it all right if we... Yeah. Is it all right if we bring Jim on as a driver and blah, blah, blah? And he's giving him a little rub on the shoulder there and just being so nice. And he's got this huge radiant smile and Louis can't resist. And he goes, yeah. And I just thought it was brilliant. Brilliant bit of acting from everybody and extremely well put together scene.
Yes, it was. So that's that step in this process of getting Jim a job sorted. And now we're going to move on to the next one, which is scene 3 and trying to get him a driver's license, which is obviously kind of important if you want to be a cab driver.
Oh, yeah.
So everyone, and I think it's interesting that everyone goes with him to is it the DOT?
No, the DMV. Surely it's
the DMV.
The DMV.
I don't know. We got
Americans famously slag off the DMV. So many sitcom episodes are set in DMVs. Seinfeld would have had one in a DMV. Married with Children, Bud got a job at the DMV.
Was My Name Is Earl? Didn't they have one in the...
Mm-hmm. I don't actually know. I'm just saying yes.
Oh, okay. Everyone, just take it as read that everyone had an
every
episode
sitcom ever produced in America has an episode encountering the DMV.
Yes, but not all characters were probably there. So all the characters are... all the 4 core have gone with Jim to the DMV, and they're helping him fill out the application form, especially the tricky questions such as name, eye colour.
No, but that's the genius of the joke, because it doesn't say eye colour. All it says is eyes, and he starts writing down 2, and Elaine goes, no, Jim, you don't write down 2. I think they mean... Yeah, anyway.
But then it gets even better, because Bobby tries to do the eye colour thing for him, but then they switch over to Elaine, and she says, well, I think we can rule out white. Yeah. Because obviously his eyes are bloodshot from his substance abuse.
And there's a nice bit of acting there also from Christopher Lloyd, in that his character we've seen through the whole episode, because he's so spaced out, his eyebrows are always raised and his eyes are always widely, but then in this episode, he's got nowhere to go with the eyes. So he opens his mouth, as human beings do, because we think if we put our jaw downwards, it's going to open our eyes a bit more.
Yep.
So have you ever done that? You've gone to open your eyes? You have. You didn't know you had. Me and the rest of humanity, Steve. So I just thought that was pretty. In this scene, which is up and down, there's all this beautiful little bits of physical acting that I might comment on. But sorry, Steve, I've interrupted you again. Off your pop.
Well, I thought we would insert a clip here.
This is the most reading I've done in years. My brown eyes hurt.
Here, let me help you out, okay? Have you ever experienced loss of consciousness, hallucinations, dizzy spells, convulsive disorders, fainting, or periods of loss of memory?
Well, hasn't everyone?
No.
Mental illness or narcotic addiction?
Now, that's a tough choice.
Okay, that's it. You ready for the test?
I thought this was a test.
No, this is the application.
Oh, man. Oh, shit. Hey, it's getting rougher and rougher.
Yeah, so that was all very good. And then now we've filled out the application form. Jim hands that in and he has to sit the actual test. So what happens is the gang waits a little ways off from him and he goes into a different section of the same set or the same foyer or whatever they're in.
And there's a bunch of other people also sat at desks like Jim is, also taking the test.
It looks like the kind of thing you would have sat at if you were going to a lecture, a university lecture back in the day. It kind of has the thing that swivels out in front of you as a desk. Yeah.
They're cool.
So that's the way it's set up. And now we get a classic joke. And according to bestlifeonline.com and their funniest sitcom jokes of all time, this was the number one sitcom joke of all time, Jeff.
You are kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding you. Beating out the super Nazi scene from Seinfeld, the rock, paper, scissors, lizard Spock scene from The Big Bang Theory, and Mrs. Richards' hearing aid in Fawlty Towers.
No. And next thing you're going to be telling me that a beat out bloody Del Boy falling through the bar in Only Fools or Trigger's Broom or something.
There was a US article, so it had a bit of a focus on US sitcoms.
That is because in my notes here, I'm saying that this is a painfully... After the first thing, they needed to cut it off after the first response. But let's lay out the stall here, Steve, and you can tell the dear listener what the gag is.
Well, it's pretty simple. Basically, Jim is stumped by the question on his test paper. What does a yellow light mean?
What does a yellow light mean? Slow down. Okay. What? Yellow light mean? Slow down. Okay. What does a yellow light mean? Slow down.
I thought that is genius. That's a genius gag.
Well, they kept it going three times.
And it takes up a full minute. And then, by the end, I'm going, are they really still going with this? Aren't we cutting to the next scene? And I was like, oh, God.
But are we arguing with bestlifeonline.com?
Yes, I'll argue with anyone now. I've lost all faith in any institutions or newspapers, unless they agree with me, obviously, in which case...
Oh, dear.
It's fine. Give me my echo chamber.
No, I agree with you. I thought they went back the third time and I would have cut it off after two.
Absolutely. I wouldn't have let him get halfway through the second one.
Yep.
That's where to cut it. But the gag itself is brilliant. It's just not brilliant the third time.
Yep. So that is the end of that scene. And then finally we're back in the garage for the last scene of the show where we discover that Jim has passed the test. Yay!
Yeah.
And he's getting presented the keys to his first cab. Everyone's...
By Alex.
by Alex, yep, and everyone's there. They're all smiling. He thanks everyone for their help, and he promptly backs the cab through the back wall of the garage. And so that's the cherry on top of the.
Did you see that coming?
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Did you?
Yeah, totally. The whole way the shot was set up, you knew that was going to happen. I'm thinking, oh no, they're going to back through the thing. But the genius of it was, because I was feeling quite let down that happened, but the absolute brilliant bit was Jim turns around to poor old Alex, who's in the back, probably got whiplash, and he's being showered in debris, and he goes, "That'll be 90 cents.
Yeah.
I just loved that.
Bit rude charging him for that. Yeah, so Reverend Jim's now a regular on the show. And there's another great episode of him where the guys go camping in a hut for a weekend or something like that. It's called The Call of the Mild.
Right.
It's like a fish out of water episode where, of course, they're all city guys, you know.
Oh, so, true, yes. Good point.
They have a bit of a struggle. Yes, so that's the end of the episode.
So where do we go from here in this brave new world of Sitcom Showdown where we are tweaking the format?
Well, I've just got a short summary, and then I guess after whatever you've got to say as a summary, I'd put it to you and see what you say.
All right, cool.
So there's not many scenes. We've only got 4, but they give and probably because of that gives them plenty of room for introducing the character of Jim and for him to really shine as the new person on the block in this episode, and for all of his situation and the solution to it and all that sort of stuff. The jokes are great. They don't seem forced. They just naturally arise out of the situation that they're in. And I thought the DOT was a good example of that, where, you know, they've got the purpose is obvious. He needs a driver's license. He's got to go through the application. He's got to sit the test, and the jokes just flow from that. And just changing the subject a little bit, I think it's nice to sometimes watch a sitcom where the characters are genuinely friends and good to people without being naive, which I think you were saying earlier with Alex's comment, or sickly sweet, which is something that Taxi does really well, whereas, you know, we love our sarcastic sitcoms, but it is nice to see, and maybe it is harder to get jokes out of a situation where everyone's largely friendly to each other.
Yeah, you don't get these nice moments in Seinfeld. And sometimes it would be nice. But yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying.
So we deal with this serious issue of Jim being down on his luck, and we find humour and heart in it. And so I think this episode's a good example of that dynamic which you find in Taxi. And of course we get to see this fantastic core group of cast members, plus Andy Kaufman and Christopher Lloyd. So that's pretty much why I chose this one. Have you got summary comments before I put the nomination?
Oh, man. I've got more than summary comments. I've got tons of things that I didn't get a chance to inject earlier.
Crowbar some more comments in, Jeff.
Oh, I totally will.
Tell us what you think.
Well, I'll start off with a light-hearted one, Steve-o, because, again, in the my whole take on that massive one of the 4 scenes where they're in the DMV and they're doing that had the absolute best moments and the worst moments. I think there were some gags in there that were poor, but let's skip over those because, more importantly, Steve, Jim's concentrating really hard on filling in this form.
Yep.
And this is a nice bit of physical acting I enjoyed here. And, you know, he licks the pencil, which is something where it's the pencil equivalent of rolling up your sleeves, because I'm really getting down to the serious business now. So he's hunched over the thing. I've decided on my answer. I'm going to tick the box. Why? I know why people lick their fingers before turning a newspaper page, because you need that sort of purchase on the page.
I was just about to ask you, why do people
lick pencils?
They taste good? I don't know.
But I'm expecting you as the font of all wisdom to teach this to me
no
as
idea.
my older brother. You're supposed to say, well, Jeffrey,
I've got nothing.
people... Oh, man, okay.
It's just another eccentric thing that Jim's doing.
Answers on the back of a postcard to Sitcom Showdown.
He's stoned, he's got the munchies.
It's a strawberry-flavoured pencil.
Exactly.
Well, thanks, man. But on the topic of nice bits of visual stuff, there's another brilliant bit of Judd Hirsch action, right? So, and it's a crap gag, but great stuff from Judd Hirsch. So, what's happening is one of the questions is weight, because obviously on your license they're going to put height, weight, blah blah blah. And Jim, in a painfully forced gag, said, well, you know, it's a relative question. If I was in space right now, I'd be weightless. And to which Tony Danza goes, oh, you are in space. And it was a weak gag. But what happens is Judd Hirsch explains very patiently to Jim. He says, we mean Earth gravity, Jim, you know, blah, blah, blah. But what he does is he spreads his hands out, palms down, and he slaps them on the table to illustrate gravity. And like he could have just delivered that line with no physical stuff. And maybe I'm overplaying it a bit, but I think that's just part of the genius of Judd Hirsch, because it was a real exclamation point where he goes wham with his hands on the... hammering it home to Jim, who needs things hammered home to him.
Yep.
I think.
Very nice.
There's so many from all the actors in this show. There's all these little thoughtful bits of physical stuff that aren't on the page that they do, which I thought was really, really cool.
It is nice to see them doing those things, because it's a lot of people to be... I'm sure most sitcoms wouldn't take their four characters down to a scene like this.
No. And that's probably why they limit themselves to so few places, because you don't want to come up with these contrived reasons to take a whole crew everywhere and all that sort of stuff.
Yep. But here they just go, well, these are the 2 or 3 that have got the lines at any given time, and they just let the others figure out how they're interacting with that.
Yeah.
Off to the sidelines.
I reckon. But yeah, that whole test scene, I thought it started out really well, and then it got boring and slow with the 1 minute thing. But what I did love is, because poor old Jim, as he points out, he's never had to do this much reading since he was in school. Yeah. And he's just getting more and more frustrated, and you can see it building in him. And he's filled this bloody thing out, and now he can take it in, and they go, right, now you're ready to take the test. And he just hits the wall. He goes, I thought this was the test.
I love that one. It's in our clip.
It's fantastic. One thing I will say about Christopher Lloyd, though, and I felt really smug when I found evidence to back up my claim. When they're at the beginning of the show, they're all around the bar table. I mean, he's a superb actor, and he's delivering his lines really well, and he's got the physical stuff down. He's very loud, and I'm thinking that's very stagey. He's trying to project to the studio audience to the back of the hall, Bonnie Langford style in Doctor Who, when you don't need to do that in television.
Yep.
He's the anti-Judd Hirsch. And so then I looked him up on Wikipedia, and his background is all in theatre. And I thought, here's Christopher Lloyd. Clearly, he's on stage. He's not in the studio.
Yep.
And that annoyed me. But I now understand why. All right, only 2 more things to comment on. Some on Taxi as a whole. But before I get to that, I just want to say about Latka. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the Goons, Steve.
Well, not very.
Oh, okay.
I've heard a little bit.
I love drawing this parallel between Latka and Blue Bottle. So in the Goons, you know, Blue Bottle in the later series would often come on 3/4 of the way through, and everyone's just been waiting for this character to appear, right? And whenever he comes on, it's like, hey, and everyone loses their minds. And Latka's sort of similar in that he's like Blue Bottle.
Hang on, well, who's Blue Bottle?
Blue
Sounds like a
Bottle's
jellyfish.
A character, yeah, that's, well...
I will climb this ladder with a piece of bread, and when I get to the top, I will hold it out to the sun. If the sun is not on fire, the bread will get toasted. Now then, who's going to hold the ladder?
Oh, you'll hold the ladder, Blue Bottle.
Thank you, Eccles. Promise you won't let go.
I promise you won't let go.
Then up I go. Springes onto ladder. Effect is ruined as trousers fall down. Oh! Short vest.
What the hell is this?
It's a cable.
What's a kebble?
Well, it takes 270 cable make a liftnich.
What's a liftnich?
130 liftnich make a matter.
Okay, so what's the matter?
I don't know nothing. What's the matter with you? I read it at the bubblegum wrapper.
I can't explain it to you, Steve, because the Goons doesn't take place in any sort of reality we'd recognise. You've got this innocent as Latka is, but hilariously innuendo-y, sort of childlike dude with a cute voice. And he'll accidentally say things that are just hilariously funny because he's so innocent and all this sort of stuff, you know. Yep. And I think there's a lot of similarities between Latka and Blue Bottle, and Goons aficionados will know what I mean. And they may think I'm dead wrong, but that's the case I'm making. But lastly, on Taxi, I think you're bang on with what you were saying about heartwarming aspects of the show and everything, and that's probably another way you could compare it to MASH as well. But I think the reason it got all these awards and was so loved in its first years and all those nominations is because you've got all these crew of people and they've all got their own individual problems and they're sort of forced together, but they work in this sort of harmony, and as everyone deals with their stuff and they help with each other. It's a uplifting show in the same way I think a lot of other shows aren't. And I can see it would have been a unifying show, because there's a big trend at the moment of saying this movie was divisive and that show is divisive and all that. But I think this is a unifying show. It brings everyone together, and that's probably why it's so universally loved. The problem, I think, with Taxi is similar to what you were saying. The cast is so good that it feels like you don't get to spend much time with each person. And how do you find lines for all these incredible actors? It's exactly the problem you want. Too many actors and not enough lines. And then I realised, Steve, I'm seeing this from the wrong way around in time. I'm going, how did they get all these amazing actors on this show? But they weren't. When the show started, they weren't Danny DeVito and Tony Danza and all these guys. It's the show that made them, rather than how lucky were they to get all these big-time names.
That's right.
And it's so obvious that that's where I was going wrong.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then it makes you appreciate Taxi all the more.
Yeah, I think they struck gold when they cast these people, that's for sure. But don't forget, in a season, each character would have had, they were in every episode, but in each episode there would be a spotlight on someone different. So,
and the public become attached to them, and it gives them a showcase to show what they can do with their talents. And
the character gets a showcase in pretty much every season. So if you're wanting more of a particular character, you can get it sooner or later.
And the other benefit of being where we are now in time, I suppose, is someone on the internet will tell you which episodes to target if you want to get more of that actor.
Yeah. Yep. Or even just the episode synopsises on Wikipedia or IMDb can really help you do that.
Cool. Right, so as far as should this go into the Hall of Fame or anything, I'm just going to, because I've never seen any other Taxi.
Oh, really?
So I'm just going to have to take it from you that this is
one of the, I mean, there's several really good ones, but I think this is one.
Yeah, jolly good. I'm glad you brought it along.
So you're saying yes then?
Oh, yes. No, I'm sorry. I'm saying yes.
Right, no, we've got to make it official.
Yeah, good. Well, let's put this one into the Hall of Fame. It's a remarkable sitcom that if I think in retirement I'll have to go back and watch a lot of Taxi, but not on Netflix because they'll yank it off there.
Yeah. I think Cheers is a similar kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
There's just so much to mine there. It's just a matter of taking the time to do it.
Good call.
All right. Well, thanks very much. And thanks for joining us, listeners. We'll be back in a month or so. Take care and bye-bye.
Cheers.
Join us next time on Sitcom Showdown when we'll be putting another 5-star episode under the microscope. And in the meantime, you can contact us with feedback on Facebook, Twitter @Sitcom Showdown, or by email sitcomshowdown@gmail.com.